Hello, hello. All right, this is just a brief introduction for anyone that clicks on this later on and happens to check it out. What we're going to be talking about real quick is perspective and cleaning up perspective within our interior scenes. So if you've ever had to by a professor or for a studio or anybody, or you're just trying to learn how to be able to do an interior shot for a background environment. This is going to be the out of pocket, just sort of quick guide to working through perspective within a scene. There's tons of videos out there on the internet that'll show you how to be able to set up the grid within Adobe Photoshop and get all your perspective grid lines laid out. And I find a lot of times that can be pretty limiting um, for your imagination. If you've ever had like a drawing one class or had, a traditional medium teacher that starts introducing the very basics of perspective, rarely, a lot of those drawings end up being very box-like. They don't have a lot of detail on the exteriors of them, and they are filled with just incredibly, incredibly straight lines. One of the cool things about this medieval times project here with the interior and exterior shot is that during the medieval period, a lot of stuff was not built exactly straight. It's a lot more forgiving if you've got a little bit of a crooked wall going on within your scene, or if you're wood beams that are load bearing up on the ceiling are starting to sag a little bit. That is totally okay. But the few items that we do have in here, we still want to be able to do our very best to be able to get the perspective right and looking correct. So within this innkeeper's study, some of the issues with the perspective are coming up with the desktop, with this window seal over here. The barrel is working pretty okay, but it all kind of looks like we're standing up on a ladder and looking down at the shot, and the desk looks like it's on a bit of an angle. Everything feels like it's on a bit of a slant right now. So I'm going to give you guys the quick shot of how to be able to think about perspective within a scene like this. Now, the first step for doing perspective within a scene, for me, is establishing where the back wall is at. So the first one is our Y. That's the first blue line that I'm drawing here is Y. This also applies to 3D design as well. So the Y is always the best question, right? Why are we doing this? The Y is the up and down. So if you're going up or down in space, that is your y-axis. So this is going to be known as the y-axis, the up and down. The next one that we're going to do is this sort of line over here to the side. That's going to establish my back wall. All right. So that is going to be, we'll call that the X. So that is moving left and right within the scene. And now we've got the Z axis. So the Z axis is going to be backwards and forwards. These are our three-dimensional directions that we can move. And now, once you've got this sort of upside down Y shape established within your shot and within your scene, you can really start to hone in on your perspective and to make it really work. So for the first one, I'm just going to be going through and I'm going to bisect those lines that I just created. So I'm creating verticals. I haven't, well, that one was on a diagonal, but I'm making sure that that diagonal is going the same direction as the lines, this back Z line over here. Now from here, I want to make sure that I am creating, there we go, another line. And all I've done is I've just taken the first vertical X and Z lines that I created, and I'm going through the middle of those. I'm holding down the shift button on my keyboard to be able to draw, oops, straight up and down. So I know that these are vertical or horizontal lines that I'm doing. The next one that I'm going to do is a diagonal line. So this is going to be on the same distance. Let's change those just a little bit. There we go. That'll work. And that'll work. as the so this is going back a little bit further. That means that between here and here is a little bit closer than this is. This is just a little bit longer. So we're getting a little bit of depth to the room with how our lines are bisecting it. So things are starting to work pretty good for us. Once we've got that stuff established, then it's just a matter of going in and we can bisect those lines that we already did. So if we do it one more time, again, this is just going to be a vertical here on the wall. We can do another vertical right in the center. That looks accurate. So almost like you're making a checkered floor within a within a 1950s kitchen or something, and you can start to get those lines that are working pretty accurately. Once you've got that, it sort of becomes like a holo-deck within Star Trek. We can really go in at this point and start working from those lines and using those lines as measurement tools to be able to figure out the rest of our shapes. So let's go in here, and now we've got our, sorry, you can't really see that green. Let's go with the red. That might stand out a little bit better. Okay. I'm on a new layer. So now we've got our red line that's going up. Again, this is just a straight vertical, looking really good. That's working fine for me. And now we've got this recess. So how to be able to make this recess here? Well, the recess is easy enough. We're just going to create a line that is working, that's bisecting those other lines that were there before, right? So now that's just keeping the same distance here, and it feels accurate for subdividing that line. So I'm just keeping a visual reference on my measurements for these lines underneath. Now I know I've got another vertical back here. That's going to go over there. And then I've got another horizontal line that's going to go over here. Now, from there, let's go ahead and get the front part. Nope, that's not right because it's not a nice straight line through, there it is, through this section. And then we're just going to go back with it. So, oops, my mouse is jumping around a little bit. There we go. That's correct. And now we've got this bench down here. So I can just draw a little line down. And then we've got the line moving forward. So all that's feeling pretty accurate. But here's where this comes in handy. So the bench that we're seeing within the gray line behind right now isn't accurate. Again, it looks like it's sort of on an angle. And this is where that problematic angle comes from our underdrawing. And this is how we can correct that by using this method. So now that bench is absolutely accurate within my shot. We can give it a bench top. That's no problem. There we go. So if we want to do something besides just square objects and get a little fancy with it, we can. So let's give that bench. Let's get out of here and get rid of that line. Got my vertical line. So here it is. That's my vertical line. Let's go up with the bench. Let's open it up on this side, open it up on this side. And now, keeping with that line, that's not a pretty line that I just drew. There we go. Another line going forward and over. And now each one of these lines is just going to go straight back. That one's not exactly accurate. We need for it to go a little bit further up. There we go. And we can even start to cut some holes within this if we want to. There we go. So now we've got a more interesting bench top that's working with our perspective. Do a wood inlay into it, any kind of other filigree you might want to create. And I'm just keeping in mind my measurement lines along the way to be able to create that. So within yours, we've got a bottom. And right now that base doesn't really have much interest to it. So let's have it stick out just a little bit more. Going over here. I'm holding down Shift. Click once, hold down Shift, and then click again to be able to get my secondary lines. We're going to get rid of some of those starter lines here now. Just so that I can do the the cupboards that you had designed before. So with the cupboards, you got 3 of them. Those are again going to be vertical lines instead of horizontal, or instead of trying to freeform them. I'm starting from the middle one and then moving my way over on either side. Always start from the middle when you're doing cupboards, windows, or anything like that. You can do one line going straight across. That's not accurate. Let's do this one. There we go. That'll work. And then you can just delete, erase out those little connector lines. And now all of a sudden you've got the windows looking much, much better and much more accurate within your shot. Yeah. So let's turn off our blue lines and turn up our perspective. And we can see that we've got an absolutely terribly accurate bench for the perspective within this scene. It's working. We've got our X and Y axis, and that's looking pretty good for us as we start to move through this thing. Now, the next one that we have that I want to go ahead and knock out is going to be blue. Let's go with orange. Right, orange. I think that we can see that one. So the chair is completely lost right now. It's got some issues that are going on with it, but let's start with this desk and figure out our desk. So for the desk, I'm going to keep it in line with the with my lines on the ground. So again, I'm just watching this area right here, this distance between the two, and that feels accurate to me. The distance is staying the same. I know my verticals, any kind of upward lines are going to be up each and every time, up each and every time. And then we know that this line is connecting to the back wall. So that means I can go through and I can bisect my back wall. All right. That's going to be the height of the desk. And then the height of the desk is going to fall in line with these lines as they move forward. So I want to visually match. That's too high. It's almost it. I actually hand drew it. There it is. A little bit better than I was able to do it in that other way. Okay, so now we've got one more line that we need to do, and we know that we are going to be bisecting over here. So keep this one the same distance from that line that we cleanly measured out previously. There it goes. And now we just need to connect these 2 points. There we are. And now we've got the back of the desk, which is sort of hidden, but we don't have to hide it. There it goes. And there we go. So we are pulling from the wall lines, right? We're using the wall lines and those base bisected floor lines that I created previously to help direct us to where the items on the floor are going to go. That's staying right. That's correct. Got this line for the floor chair. This line is going to go straight down, back. You can do all kinds of other fun stuff here. This line, and just freehand that one. It's going to go out like this. And this frees you up so that you can really start putting some more detail into the into the into the furniture itself, right? So now once we've got this base shape, let's turn this up again, turn off our back lines. You can see it's a little bit high right there on the front of the desk. So that needs to go down. There we are. This. So once we've got our base shape here, start deleting out some of those other lines, we can really start to do some fun shapes and give it a little bit more interest, right? So we know where this thing is sitting on the ground. Come on, color. Let's use that red again. And now we can start to bisect those table legs out of the square that we just created a moment ago, round it at the bottom, and we can create the same thing here. Big one, round one. Give it a bowling pin type of shape. Then we've got another cog down at the bottom here. It's going to become round right there. And I'm using that center line to be able to get the shape of it. This also allows you to be able to do all types of fun stuff. The same thing is going to happen for the drawers that we did with the inset dresser over here on the left-hand side, where I'm going through working from this back line. Back line, bisecting it. That one's in line. So we know that one's accurate. And now we can start to do the drawers as well. Verticals are vertical. And really just sort of working my way in with the geometry into these actual complex shapes for the furniture within a shot like this. So instead of setting up all those crazy grid lines, the most important part for this is figuring out that vertical in the background, the X and the Z lines, and then from there bisecting those so that we can start to pull from those wall lines and these are really our main measuring lines. We can recess into it, or we can build furniture and other items out from it as well. Let's look at this shot. So this one's got some issues with the perspective, and we're going to try and clean some of that stuff up here right now. Okay, so within the ceiling, I think the ceiling is working well, but there's probably some issues with figuring out how much of the bottom of those beams to be able to show. We'll get to that. And how do we find the, this is the one that clicked for me within my head, right? I think perspective is it's an abstract thing within drawing. So I'm always looking for where that back corner is at within the room. So if this is the back corner, let's say it's here and here. Okay. We got a horizontal line moving forward a little bit. We got more of a vertical line going up over here, but that doesn't really matter. And then let's say that this one goes out like this. And this one's going to go forward, just so we've got a little bit of a second tier here. And now the next step, once I've got my X and my Y and my Z figured out, is to bisect those lines. Right? So I want to find where my middle position is going to be. There we go. Middle position here. Let's just go ahead and put one right within this section. It's going to come across like that. Then we're going to have another one up here, and that looks and feels accurate to me for how these lines would within the space would work. Let's turn our base up. Yeah, so we've got a really nice, accurate looking kind of hollow deck room here with the lines on the floor and the lines on the wall. We've got our X, Y, and Z figured out, and the perspective and the spacing is looking good enough for me to be able to keep moving forward. So from here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to bisect this line again. Verticals are going to be verticals. Let me find my middle from that Z line, the thicker one. Find my middle. Okay. And then from there, I'm looking at the middle of these two lines. That feels good to me. Middle of these two lines. That looks accurate. Let's bisect these two dudes. Vertical is vertical. And I'm just cutting each one of these in half. This one, gosh, start point is like right here. Nope. See how off it got and it doesn't look right. So that's still a little bit. There you go. It's better, still not perfect, but it'll work. All right, cool. So we got this stuff pretty well bisected at this point, and I'm working on my gray layer. So we're off to a great start. Color range. There they go. Let's fill it in again. Delete out that previous gray layer. And now we can drop it down. Okay, cool. So I think that this starts to kind of highlight where the issues are going on with that table within the center of the shot. And we want to get this table right in the middle of the scene, looking much, much stronger. And fortunately, once we've got this quick little step that takes you, no time at all, less than a minute and a half to be able to set up, and you've got these guidelines. Again, once you figure out your vertical, your Z, your X, your forward and back, your left and right, your up and down. Once you've got those figured out, you're in a great spot to be able to never again be feeling your way through the dark. It all starts from building from the ground or building from the wall and using these reference lines. So next up, let's go back into our orange and we're going to figure out where this table's at. So if that is our baseline for the table, we've got it here. It can be on an angle. I'm totally fine with that. If we want to put this table on an angle, let's do it. All right. So that's going to be the line that the table's on. That's fine by me. But we still want this to work with the perspective of the rest of the scene, right? Now all of a sudden we're getting into some weird territory here because the table's set at an angle within the shot. I'm still connecting this first line back to my wall. So this is going to be the main leg for the table. Vertical is vertical, okay? We've got our line going backwards, okay? And then let's go ahead and figure out that table, the second leg within perspective. There we go. That feels good to me. Okay. Now we've got from the wall, a vertical coming forward. Accurate. The distance between this section here, the up and down in this area, and the up and down in this area is moving realistically and it's relative to the perspective and the depth that we're seeing within the shot. It feels like if we were looking from the edge of like a high school stage within an auditorium, that height looking up onto the stage is accurate. And so it lets me know that I am in a good spot here. So next up, we've got our horizontals. Horizontal, oh, so it's back on this kind of angle. So from here, we've again got that depth that we need to consider. There it is. And that is going to be the axis for our table. So this is where the next leg is going to go. Remember, vertical is vertical. So we got two legs. It's starting to come together. Got another vertical leg here. There we go. That feels accurate. And just like I did with this one, where I'm figuring out the height so that it's working within perspective, well, the perspective height is going to work for this table too, that trick. So let me make it in red so that we can see it a little bit easier. So if this is coming back to the back wall, these two lines, then I just need to be able to figure out where the top of the table is going to be. All right. So that's hitting there. Feels pretty good. Okay. Let's get this one. And I'm looking at this orange line. There we go. Feels correct to me. And now we've got the table moving back. So let's get this line. Sorry, this is the back of my table leg, and I'm trying to just line this up with the rest of the shot. There it goes. That feels accurate. So that's where my last table leg is going to be. Let's drop down the visibility on these two red lines so we can see what it is I'm going to do. And I'm going to change the color overlay to my orange ones to black so I can see what's going on here. All right, there we go. We're in a good spot. Looks a little crazy right now, but we got this. So now I'm going to follow these two lines. Okay, top of the table. There it is. Let's start here. There it is. Top of the table. Up, back, and then over. Cool. I think we did it. And then we've got our back leg here. A little bit tighter on this. Yeah, not fun drawing a table at an angle in the middle of a room. But don't shy away from it. It looks good, and it looks more naturalistic when not everything is completely round or flush or following these perspective lines. When you have something that's a little bit off kilter, it does look better. Okay, cool. So let's turn this all the way back up again and see if we've got a table that looks like it actually belongs within this room. Yes, we do. So even though this table is off kilter from the it's not just perfectly horizontal or straight to the wall. It still is matching and the perspective is working correctly within the space, which is exactly what we want it to do. So there we go. I think we just made the first epoxy table from medieval times. Oops, dinosaur lines. Yeah, let's start from my guideline. That's going to work better. There it is. Cool. All right, so we've got a good looking medieval table here. Once you've got these square pillars, you can do any kind of round shape that you would want to on the interior of those square pillars. Let's get rid of that and get rid of some of those guidelines. See how we're doing. Cool. So there's one that is not matching up perfectly with the center of the room, but the perspective is still working on it even when it's off kilter. And those guidelines are still super helpful to be able to measure things from the wall, right? Moving forward so that the perspective is working correctly. Again, trying to get to this back wall and making sure that we're considering the distance and the increase in the size. Helps a ton when you're doing these interiors. So from here, the chair is going to be the same way. You're going to start with basically just a box. You can cut the legs out of the box once you've got the box established. So let's turn this up just a little bit more to where we can barely see that chair. And yeah, let's go with red. All right. So we got this chair sitting right here. Again, this is off kilter. That's okay. Let's go in and Get our box. All right. So with the box, it's basically just a big pillar, right? And as soon as I can get this pillar figured out, then I can start to figure out a lot of the other things. So with this, where are the lines for the chair going? Over here, that'll work. There it is. Up, up for the vertical, for the wall height back here. That looks good to me. That looks good to me. We just about have got, there it is. Got our chair. So we've got our chair at a weird angle. Let's go in. Verticals are vertical. Vertical is vertical. Where's my back line? And then from there, there it goes. Cool. So we got our chair. So I'm starting with these really rough lines, and now we're going to finish it off real quick. Yep. Sorry. Here we go. Keep it on that line. Keep it on the line. Vertical is vertical. Oh, gosh. Back lines. And once again, we can go in and we can make this thing have a more interesting back to it. But we have got a very modernist looking chair within our shot right now. But yeah, it's working with a off-centered perspective within the scene. It's also working with the same perspective as the table, so all the height looks the same. There might be a little bit of an issue with the chair. That happens to you. Sometimes going in and distorting things just a little bit can help. There we go. Cool. Edit, transform, distort one more time, just a little bit. Yeah, it's correct. Control T, Control V, and it should not matter the scale and moving it around. Now we've got our, well, within that position, but yeah, the chair is an accurate size to the actual table and to the desk. And let's just have a look at this and in comparison to what we had previously. So that's a pretty big jump, even though we've still got two of the chair legs in the same position, right? So the side of the chair is still the same from where it's stopping and stopping, but you can see that within the perspective, how this chair would work, to be able to see the top of it is quite a bit different. So yeah, and now it actually fits and works within the shot. That's tricky. That's definitely not an easy one, going through and offsetting furniture from the axis of the room and the way that you got it built. It can be done. It's a little bit easier, like I did within the first example, to just make the furniture line up, and that also allows you to be able to go in there and you know, start messing with the shapes of the furniture a little bit more and really making that ornate stuff. Final notes on this room. Like I said, the beams up at the ceiling are working pretty good for the most part. I would say that you need to figure out what you're going to do with the window. The window is extremely plain right now. And you can also add some beams to be able to break up these walls a little bit better, just to be able to break up the space. Having three swords stacked together is interesting. It works, but there's more creative things that we can do besides just having three swords. We can do a whole bucket of swords, right? So we've got our perspective lines within here that are working pretty good. Give it a barrel. Still life drawing 101. And then, yeah, include you a whole bunch of different swords within your barrel, a whole bunch of scallards, things like that. Having them mounted to the wall is interesting. With your barrel, give it some roundness. But a stand for the sword, similar to the way that they hold, Japanese katanas within a dojo, becomes a lot more interesting if we just build a piece of furniture out. Now all of a sudden we can create some really interesting vertical shapes, how the weapons are held. This is where sketching this thing out in a lighter color besides just 100% is really helpful. I'm watching my perspective lines to be able to get this. There it goes, accurate because of those perspective lines. And we can do a shelf with no problem. It's not working too well. There it is. See the base, top of the shelf, back of the shelf. So now we've got some snazzy IKEA furniture, 2016 collection. Then we can start to display the swords like this. And now we've got something that's actually designed instead of just plopping the swords on the wall like that. We've got a much more ornate and interesting way to be able to display. Also change the shapes of the blades a little bit. Let's go with a big oversized one. Cool. So between So just having some swords hanging up on the wall. Now all of a sudden we've got a whole little barrel of our swords. We've got some broken ones, some more expensive ones. You could even do, since we've got our wall mount here, to give some more interesting ways to be able to display and hang a sword. So now we've got a decorative sword. Giving it little tiny details on there just to make it look a lot better. So now all of a sudden, instead of just three swords hanging out on the walls by themselves, we've got a whole little sword still life that we've created here. It always helps to be able to, drop in some stuff behind this as well. So let's say it's medieval times. So maybe they're real into tapestries also. So if you add a tapestry down at the base, give it some wrinkled fabric, it's moving forward just to be able to break up the lines, all these straight lines behind you. And all of a sudden you can include some kind of pattern, maybe a big coat of arms, um, some kind of forest scene or something like that. And it gives you another color to be able to separate this out from the wall a lot better. And it starts to look just a whole lot more interesting visually than just having three swords hanging out on the wall. So for the seamstress, what else can we do here? I've done a interior for someone who was sewing before, and there it goes. That's what mine ended up looking like. So I got to thinking, maybe there's other banners and things that we could hang down on the walls to be able to make it look a little bit more interesting. This sewing wheel, I would not recommend doing that for anybody. This was not fun to sit there and paint and draw. But stools, spools of thread, a big vat for dyeing garments is a good idea. What else did I have in here? Other little items, right? I think you already had a lot of that stuff figured out on the front table. Yeah, the thread, the needle, the scissors. But yeah, big spools of fabric is always a good idea. Rugs on the floor help to be able to break things up. I've seen people try and do rugs before in the past and have a little bit of trouble with it. So let's figure out how to be able to do a big round item on the ground. Go with a color that's really going to stand out here. Dark blue. All right. So we want to put a circle on the floor. Orange is hidden right now, so let's go with a circle. All right. And our stroke, we want to increase the stroke. There we go. So I've created a circle. Now, what I want to do is go to Edit, Transform, and let's distort it. Let's go down here. That's pretty good. Just by distorting the top down, we can really start to flatten this circle in some big ways. You can also scale it up in the front, which helps even more to give it that perspective. And we can shift all this stuff back just a little bit more. So now all of a sudden, just that quick, we've got a big circular rug that we can put on the ground within the shot just to be able to give some more spacing or base within the scene. And if we did this right, yeah, that rug will work over here, and it'll work anywhere within, just about anywhere within this plane on the shot. Yeah, nothing too difficult about laying in one of those rugs. I think we've got enough measurement lines on the floor between the two examples within this video to be able to show how to be able to get a square rug within your shot. Yeah, but vats of dye are a really good thing for any kind of medieval sewer. More spools of yarn, hanging banners and such for maybe famous knights or people that they've worked for and tailored for within the past could be a good idea. Um, yeah, I guess I've got two stools within here. This is a big old thing of hay, like Rumpelstiltskin. And my big thing was just trying to break it up so that the floor isn't completely flat. I usually don't like to do just flat floor spaces. So giving some type of steps or some kind of raised section is always nice. That also opens you up to be able to do handrails or some kind of guardrail within the space that can have some kind of ornate shapes to it that can help to reinforce the shape language that you're working with. I would say that for the medieval door or the door entryway, it'd be worth looking up other medieval doors. Just a quick search for that is going to give you a whole bunch of ideas, and it's going to look a heck of a lot better for how you decorate around the door and the shape of the door too, instead of just having sort of the rounded top there. All right. Let's stop this one.